Waving to Jonah. Hey everyone, welcome. It's Sarah. Welcome to another Backstage Pass. It's Wednesday, and today we're talking to a couple, which is different. I've never had a couple before. We've got Jonah and Julia. Right in. Hey everybody, we're waiting for Jonah. Hope everyone's having a great day. Hey! Hi! I
Hey,
haven't seen you guys in so long.
I know since the quarantine, so
Since the
what,
core,
five,
well, yeah,
six
and
months?
I think before that too. How are you
Right.
doing?
We're good. How are
Yeah.
you? We're good. Actually, Julie and I, we had like a meeting down the coast, so like we were like rushing and like we were like we're gonna be late. We're gonna have to take this call in the car.
Oh my God.
But we got in like 5 minutes ago, so it's
Safe.
yeah,
But you
we
made
made it.
it. Just
Yeah, you look
safe.
great.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. So for those of us, our viewers, Jonah Kim is a Grammy-winning cellist, soloist, chamber musician. He's also the associate principal cello of the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra, of which Julia is a soloist. And yes, so I'm going to start with you, Jenna. So legend has it that you started learning the cello by watching VHS videos of Pablo Casals. Is this a true story or is this urban legend?
It's a true story. Yeah, I was really privileged. Like I was like one of the only kids, I guess, like that I knew in our church. Well, my dad's a pastor, so we grew up in our church. And
Mm.
in those days, not many kids had computers or like TVs. I mean, people had TVs, but not many people had VHS tapes. But like I had these
Mhm.
VHS tapes from like I think it was from like Shar Music or something. And right, and there were these tapes of Casals. Like later on I found out about his like teaching tapes and stuff like that, but at that point like my dad just gave me a tape of him playing Bach and
Mm.
and a cello, and he was like, well, do it just like that guy. His name's Pablo Casals. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. He
That's
forgot to tell
easy.
me.
You got it.
Exactly. He forgot to tell me that it was supposed to be difficult, or that people usually get lessons for years
Mhm.
and all the other details. So I didn't know that it was supposed to be difficult, which I think helped me in the beginning. I'm still kind of like that. Like it works better for me if I don't know how hard it's supposed to be, you know. But anyway, yeah, that it's sort of true.
It's well, no, that is pretty true. And
Yeah.
so you learned, where did it take you from there?
Well, luckily my folks also had like a really broad network of friends, and like friends that did interesting things. Like my dad's a
Mhm.
pastor and my mom is a retired runway model, so between the two of them
Oh,
they had like
really?
every yeah,
What
so
an
they had like
interesting
every type of friend.
combination.
It's that's how they made this thing.
This thing of beauty.
Yeah, so that's what happened. And so through their friends we found out about, I guess they knew about Juilliard and stuff, but then we
Mhm.
found out about Curtis, and then that's when I got like my very first teachers, was when I finally went to a conservatory. When I went to
Mhm.
Juilliard I got my first teacher. And actually that kind of ties into Julia's origin story. Do you call it an origin story?
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It is.
Beginnings.
Because she went to basically the Juilliard of dance, but it's in like her hometown, which is, you want to tell them about a little bit about that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Let's hear your origin story. How did you start? Were you like a little girl who was like, I want to be a ballerina? Of which
totally.
totally.
Right, and
Really?
tell them about your folks too, because that ties in really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, my parents are musicians. My
Mm.
dad plays the oboe, and my mom taught music for years. But I had very little interest in music when I was a kid. I wanted to be a ballerina. And
Oh.
my mom tells the story that when I was 3 years old, I got a tutu and put it on and told her that I was going to be a professional ballerina.
Wow.
I don't know how a 3-year-old knew that like that
Yeah.
was a legit career option, but
3-year-olds know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I told my mother that this was going to happen.
Mhm.
And I mean, but we got really lucky. There's a really good ballet school in basically my hometown that trained bunch of dancers in a lot of major companies, not only in the U.S. but throughout the world, called Central
Wow.
Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. So,
Mhm.
so my parents, being in the arts in South Central Pennsylvania, had heard of this woman, and actually, my father, he plays in the Harrisburg Symphony, and they
No
do
kidding.
some performances with Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. So that's kind of how I got my start.
Wow.
It's funny. What was it last week? Was it 2 weeks ago already? Wow, time flies. Two
I
weeks
know,
ago.
right?
It's so crazy. I mean,
Mhm.
like every day's the same, and like things that
Yeah.
happened long ago feels like yesterday, and then things that happened
Time
like
warp.
a
Yesterday.
week.
Yeah, it's like a time warp. Totally.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like don't even get me started on like lifestyle change. Like I've lost so much weight. You know how like so I used to always see Sarah at the gym, you know, and because like we go to the same gym. Like it's still closed, right?
Yeah,
So
it
like
is.
in that time I have all those years of working out have gone straight out the window.
You're probably the only person who's lost weight during
It's
quarantine,
really, it's not cool.
That's what she says.
though.
That's what she says. But now I'm the same weight I was when I was 18 now.
Yeah, he looks great.
Thanks. I don't like it, but she likes
You
it.
guys
I think
are
he
so
looks
cute. You guys
Yeah.
are so
But
cute.
anyway, we're talking about more like artistic things than
No,
like
I was sort of getting your origin story because I'm always, curious how people came to what they're doing. And Julia, it sounds like you like from the beginning, you're like, this is what I want to do. So this was, you had like a linear goal to wanting to, become a professional dancer, which is pretty remarkable, as you said, for a 3-year-old. No, go ahead.
because like we change, we adapt our dreams, but you made your dream come true just the way you dreamt it.
Something like that. There were ups and downs, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Julia got a job straight out of school. You
Mhm.
were what, 16, 17?
Yeah, I was a kid.
Yeah, and then she's
Which
been
is-
dancing professionally like the entire time. So that's literally just realizing your dream like right away.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we both got started really young.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I went through my, what do you call it? My troubadour phase.
Your troubadour face.
My self-imposed, what do you call it? My hopeless romantic phase or whatever.
What's your hopeless romantic face? Explain more.
Remember like I graduated from school like a few years after you, and then like you were off doing like rock and roll tours and movies and cool stuff. And remember like I had remember that really hot Italian girl I was dating for a while? Sorry, honey. And
Close
then
your ears.
right. And then like I don't know, we hung out in Europe for a while, and then we broke up, and then I floated around, and I really should have gone to more school, but then I was like, well, I want to do other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that I had the other life criteria that I had to live on a beach.
That
And
was your life criteria?
I like the beach. What
I'm
can I say?
impressed with your criteria. We should all be so, selective in where we want to live. But okay, so you want to live at a beach.
Yeah, so I prioritized all those things instead of going to more school. So kids stay in school, guys. It actually you get there quicker in the end. But I mean, I ended up in California, and I ended up meeting Julia. So like so far, I feel like I'm, I've stayed alive so far.
And we're
that's
by
a
the
big plus.
beach.
And we're still by the beach. It's
That's
a really
true.
cold one, but it's
Yes,
still a beach.
technically, absolutely, but it is still a beach.
But
so,
I was telling you about what we did 2 weeks ago, though.
mhm.
And it's this kind of like it shows you how small this world is, and like how we were just like destined to be together. One of 2 weeks. You know what? You know Scott? Scott,
Yes.
were you in the same class at Harvard?
We were. So for those of you who are watching who are confused, so Jonah and I were at Curtis together. In fact, I was already teaching when you got there.
Your first few years, maybe not, because you graduated what?
99.
Oh yeah, so you had just graduated. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's when you came. So we were probably there when I was already teaching. And then Scott, who we're talking about now, was a classmate of mine at Harvard before that. So continue
Like an
with
undergrad.
Your story.
Right. And that's funny because I was telling her right before the thing, Sarah taught me how to conduct. It was like the
It's
earliest
true.
class,
Mhm.
and that was the last class I had signed up to take because it was at 8 a.m. and
It was
you were
super early.
yeah. Anyway, let's not talk about the rest
Okay.
of it.
Anyway,
because my
so
conducting
you were 2
is
weeks ago.
But 2 weeks ago, I saw Scott, and I
Mhm.
was like, and Scott has this TV show now. I'm sure you've seen
Mhm.
now hear this on PBS. Great show, and he invited me to do an episode with like a bunch of our other friends, and our Stuart Goodyear was
Goodyear.
there,
Mhm.
like Steve Copes was there, everybody was there, and we were talking about like well, good news. Right
Mhm.
after the shoot, he got tested, and a bunch of friends got tested, and we were like gonna get tested, and we were like, they're not gonna fit us in, but they all had negative results. They
Negative results.
positive result, as in they got a negative
Correct.
test result.
Mhm.
So yes, so I feel like we took the test even though we didn't, and we sort of want to take the antibody test anyway. But anyway, we
Mhm.
were filming the show, and Scott's wife Alice plays
Mhm.
flute, and she went to New World. She now teaches at University of Missouri, and she's fantastic.
Mhm.
Now, her first gig out of school at Juilliard was playing Carnival of the Animals with the Harrisburg Symphony.
Ah.
So it turns out that her first gig out of school
Mhm.
and Julia's very first ballet debut happened on the same night
No
on the same
kidding.
stage.
Yeah.
Is that
Wow.
crazy?
It is. It's really a small world. I mean, I used to tell my students, you can never, talk shit about anyone because we're all, it's less than 6 degrees of separation. It's like 2 or 3 degrees of separation. I can say shit on my own interview program. There, I'll say it again. Yeah. We're also interconnected. It's wonderful and kind of scary at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
really
but
is.
Julia, I want to touch back on the fact that you started professionally when you were 16, 17,
Right.
late teens. And I mean, I guess that's not, is that normal for a dancer to start your career so
I
early?
wouldn't say it's unusual, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I was pretty young. I moved away from home before I finished high school. I started training pretty intensely when I was, 10 or
Mm-hmm.
11.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a different kind of childhood than your average
Hmm.
Well,
kid.
yeah.
I would say your
Yeah.
career track is even more unusual though, because you didn't do the competition circuit
I didn't.
and you
Mm.
didn't do any of that, and yet you got a job so quickly out of school, and then you were promoted in 2 different companies so quickly.
So
Right.
You
where
know,
you started off in, was it Portland?
Yeah,
Portland Ballet?
I
Yeah, so
danced it.
that was, you moved away from home at what, 16 and started a job, which I think is kind of extraordinary. I mean, what was it like being a teen and then having the responsibility of realizing this is your profession, you're away from home at a point when, most kids are learning how to drive or, I don't know, goofing around.
hmm
Fun fact,
A
I
fun
never
fact.
learned how to drive.
No,
But
that's so
I
funny.
did learn a lot of life lessons, moving away from home so early and kind of being independent. Um, and you figure it out like everybody
Hmm.
else and in your own way. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Jonah has a much more interesting,
Mm,
story, career path because
it's the same story.
you
Well,
were
you were
like
also, you were like in your
20.
early teens when I met you, like 13 or 14, must
Yeah,
have
if we
been.
met in '99, I would have been 11.
Okay, never mind. 11. So, I mean,
Yeah,
you were young and
I
you
was
came
young.
to the States and were you with Jana Starker first at Juilliard? And
Well,
then,
at Juilliard, I was with other teachers, and then while I was there, I it was very. It's like out of a book. Like if
hmm
I tell normal people, they don't even believe me,
hmm
and I'm so glad that I have friends who are there who can vouch for me.
hmm
Like now in town, there's this cellist friend Peter Meyer, and he was there for all of these things. So now he can vouch for me in front of all my friends here. But I was pen pals with Starker before I
Really?
ever before I ever met him, and this
Wow.
was this was right after his final Bach recording came out, and I said, "This is so different from all of your other versions." And I proceeded to then like analyze each movement, and I sent
hmm
him all of my analysis, and he was very patient, and he wrote me back. And it
Wow.
was a very different experience than I because I tried to reach out to everybody. I tried to write to Rostropovich, Yo-Yo Ma, and I saved all of their responses and
No
all of
kidding.
their managers' responses. I saved it for different reasons, but looking back now and seeing the responses, I see now that, well, I could cause some controversy, but I'm not going to, because there's enough waves out there. I don't need to start all that. There's enough to talk about without all that, you know. But anyway, I reached out to all of them, and Mr. Starker was very special. I could tell that he cared, and even though he had never heard me, he somehow, like, it was like I was meant to study with him. And so then he invited me to Indiana, to Bloomington, and I actually took time off from Juilliard to go and study with him. And he was very generous. He let me stay with him. He gave me a lot of time. It wasn't just like, oh, play for me once, you know, and then go back to New York or Philly, wherever I was living. Because I did this for the next until I did it for almost 10 years, until after I graduated from Curtis even. And every time I would go, it was like we just spent the entire time on the cello. And it was like he was my cello father in many ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that's an amazing relationship to have with, you know, a remarkable artist and, you know, teacher, and just sort of to have that connection, and like very lucky to have someone really look over you, you know, your development as a musician, as probably a person too, right?
Especially somebody of his status in our industry, to have him. It was incredibly validating for me, and it gave me a lot of encouragement. But also, I'd like to take credit for bringing two schools of cello playing that were very, very against each other together. Because once I went to Curtis, I studied with Mr. Orlando Cole and Mr. Sawyer and Peter Wiley and eventually Lynn Harrell. But this was like the opposite school. Orlando Cole and Leonard Rose belong to the same school, and they're like considered, like, they study with Felix Salmon, so it's considered the Italian school, which is like the opposite. They hate the Hungarian school. Right. So and Mr. Cole and Mr. Starker in particular, they were both considered pedagogues in their time, and were very competitive with each other, and considered each other to be rivals, not as performers but as teachers. So when I came to Curtis and said, oh, I studied with Mr. S, Mr. Cole was immediately like, we don't talk about him here.
It's verboten, yeah.
But around my third or fourth year, when I refused to stop studying with either of them, they began to actually communicate with each other. And Mr. Cole ended up going to IE to honor him, and then inviting Mr. Starker to come to Encore to do master classes. And there was this connection all of a sudden, and they were actually sharing students at one point. It was very nice to see.
You helped them bury the hatchet, really, and you really did bring two schools of.
And it was beyond that too. It was at Curtis too. Remember when you were in school, like, you weren't allowed to play for anyone else. There were people who were kicked out because they took lessons with somebody else on the same faculty.
Oh yeah, I know.
Remember? But I was the first shared student. And I think I was so little and cute that nobody was going to be territorial over me.
You must be harmless. Little did they know. That's so funny.
And now all the students get to study with whoever they want.
Right. So you started that trend.
I'm not gonna say that I was fully responsible for all of that, because obviously, like, many different parts had to come together and agree to make that happen for the kids. But I think it's a great thing now.
It is. I think it's really important to have different points of view. So, Julia, did you have a teacher who was most impactful for you, or did you study with many? And also curious, are there different styles of teaching, different schools? I mean, I know like the Russian school and the English school, there's differences like that, but really, like, how were you brought up in those traditions?
So my training was primarily in the American style, I would say. So it was a lot of the emphasis on like moving really fast, and a lot of musicality was emphasized, which is something that I value very much in my artistry.
So like Balanchine school, would you say?
Like, yeah, George Balanchine was the main influence there. And then when I came out and studied with the San Francisco Ballet. I guess the first time I was out here, I was 15. I was introduced to more teachers from other countries, from Europe. Lola Diavola was the director of the school at the time, and she actually got me she got me to see beyond just the American style of dancing to a more like fluid, like beautiful sort of movement. And I'm pretty short for a ballet dancer. I'm
How
like,
tall are you?
5'1".
Wow, that is, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even for dancer.
So which is great because I can move quickly and I can jump. But when you think of a ballerina, you think of this like long, lean, like
Giraffe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is not me. But so finding ways to emulate that in my body was transformative for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I mean, from a ballet pedagogy standpoint, I would say that my background is pretty eclectic.
Yeah.
And that's why you dance here, which is probably the most, I think SFB might be the most like stylistically diverse company maybe in the world, because they do balance sheet, but they also do contemporary dance, and they do also.
We do all the classic, like we do Swan Lake and the Nutcracker, and then we'll do an entirely new piece choreographed to Bjork.
Right.
And we'll perform it in the same week.
Right. Which, yeah, you have to be literally flexible and be able to sort of encompass all those styles, which is remarkable and also very cool. I mean, because I think, we as audience members want to see that variety and, how you can move in different ways, which is great.
That's been great for us since this has happened.
Yeah.
Actually, when the pandemic first broke out and we all had to like shelter in place for the first couple of weeks. I mean, Julia and I have always been quite active with our own things because, I mean, well, Julia's always dancing at SF Ballet,
Right?
But I mean, I mean, I think of it as a day job, and also they're really nice to me. So and they let me do other things,
right?
Which is why when I first auditioned, it was better for everybody if I didn't take the next seat over. It's just more convenient, and right, and that's worked out fine. And we've both like been equipped with all these skills over the few years that we've been there. But when it first happened, actually, we weren't those like frantic types that like couldn't wait to do something and
create content.
Play Bach in my living room, and we actually stopped posting stuff, even though we had content. We didn't post anything for a while, and kind of just like took a while to process, and then we started talking to our friends, and since then, like, our process has always like only been, if our friends ask us for something, we will never say no.
I love that.
So we've only done that. So everything that we've made videos wise, and we've been very fortunate to have like a lot of opportunities come our way in the form of friends, really, like probably, the Scott thing was big, and we did another video with Mason Bates. He wrote a beautiful song for me, and it's called Tectonic Plates, and it's really beautiful, and we recorded it, video and stuff. I think they're almost done with the video, and they're going to distribute it soon. That's
great.
This is through, I think Mason said this is through Classic FM, so you'll see it online, I'm sure. And he had the idea to use some of the elements from some of the home videos that we had been making for our friends, which is, why not have ballet and music together?
Yeah, no, I saw those. I mean, that's the perfect marriage of sound and movement, and just it's lovely that an actual couple can do that together, because that must have been like a different collaborative process than if you were just working with some guy off the street, right? I mean, you are partners literally on and off stage. So what's that process like, to be creative together? I love how you look at each other before you answer a question. It's very cute. They're like, what do you say?
I don't know. You want to start?
No, you start.
I mean, when I dance and he plays at the same time, I've never felt more comfortable or more expressive or more like myself.
I don't know why. She always says this, and actually her friends always say this too.
It's true.
Actually, it's her dance friends always say this. They're like, music that's like confusing or difficult to dance to, like really, like I just have to do it with you a couple times, and then it becomes so easy.
Like I was intimidated to dance to certain pieces of music, and
I have a theory about this. I think it's because a lot of musicians can't even play Happy Birthday if you don't give them the sheet music.
Yes, very true.
I think this is the problem.
How do you mean?
I think musicians are like, it's like when you make a microwave meal, you can follow the instructions and you can make a lean cuisine, but you don't know what's in it.
Right.
You could make the same lean cuisine from scratch and it would taste much better, but you have to know how to do it.
Exactly. How the flavors melt together and an artistry of putting those elements together. That's interesting.
So I think these musicians are playing the notes microwave meal style instead of like magic potion style, because you can make the same music, same tune, but it could be a magic potion or it could be a microwave meal. You know what I mean? And the magic
very
potion
different
thing
things.
Exactly. And that's closer to what music needs to be if we're going to move to it, right? Because I always say this to my students, but to my audiences too. Like music is the closest thing we have to real life magic.
Yeah.
We send vibrations through the air, and on a molecular and atomic cellular level, we control your thoughts and your feelings for a short while. And if it's any good, it might have some lasting effect. Now, we can close our mouth, we can close our eyes, but we can't close our nose and our ears for a reason. Because we can't really live with it when we cut these things off. So when we make music that actually communicates with somebody and make complete thoughts and complete gestures and complete music, then all of a sudden it makes so much sense. And the choreography, you don't even need to have a choreography. It choreographs itself, right?
Well, yeah, the music is the instructions.
Exactly. So Sheridan, our other friend, wrote me a brand new piece, and I thought the outer part, the A bit is kind of like waltzy, and then the B bit is kind of like in duple meter and fast. So I was like, this is perfect ballet music. Sure enough, Julia is already in the other side of the room dancing, and she's like, this is the perfect choreography.
That's so great.
That's how it goes with us. It's never like, oh, I wonder what to do next. It's never like that.
There's a lot of dancing in the kitchen, but beyond that,
it's okay. Yeah, I mean, the lack of space is hard, but through friends, like through the Mason project, like he had us come and film at a venue, and then we made friends at the venue, and then they invited us to do artist in residency, and then other people, like this other club in town, see us there, and then they invite us to another thing. So it's really, for us, we want to change the culture of art making.
Yeah,
because so many of us right now are afraid that there's no more work, and that the music industry in general is just like in delusion right now, and the performing arts industry, like dancers also are not dancing, and we're like, are we ever coming back? And is it wishful thinking? But I think beyond that, we need to change the culture, which is immediately when we're approached by people, let's say right now, this is like happening everywhere, so let's just give you a real life example. Online presenters right now, everything is online, so presenters right now are not able to raise funds the same way, because let's face it, you can't really ask people for money for purely online content, and
or
even
not as much as if it were live.
right.
Exactly. And even then, you need to give them some musical content, but how are you going to make musical content when you can't pay your musicians and you legally can't ask them to come to a venue?
Right.
So basically, you need musicians to volunteer themselves and risk their lives to make this music, to make this art, to make this dance. So there may be artists who are willing to do that, and this is what I'm saying. Us artists have to be willing to give first. We can't only all be afraid that nobody's going to pay for it, because then they'll just forget.
Right.
And already people can't wait to be numb, right? Which is why, you know, louder musics are more popular than some quieter musics, because you can't ignore some of these feelings sometimes when the music gets like that, and that's hard to deal with. And right now, I think people, if anything, are more open to it if you can kind of sort of draw them in the right way, because everyone's feeling a little more than usual, I think.
I would totally agree. Yeah, Julia, a lot more than usual. And I think, you know, part of the difficulty is being physically separated and, you know, not having that interaction. And also, you know, you were talking about the molecules moving in music, and like that makes sense to me, because music is visceral, right? We have to literally feel it. You can't feel it through a screen. And so that's a tremendous frustration for all of us. And even in the dance medium, there's a difference seeing someone, you know, sweating on stage, literally, and, you know, through a screen. Those are two very different sort of experiences with those art forms. So I think it's really challenging to overcome those.
Those words for us are keywords right now, you know, shared experience. But basically what we do, what I've been, I've been trying to do this for the last 10 years, sort of forming these concepts in my mind, but she really is kind of like clarified it for me, is think of a Venn diagram, right? And no matter what the conversation is, and no matter what the party's involved, if I think of myself as a circle and the other party, whether it's the audience or her or you or a friend or a stranger, think of them as the other circle. I think we spend way too much time thinking about the white areas, and we spend almost no time thinking about that overlapping share. And that's where we need to live. For example, when I perform, cellists and string players love to bang their left hands because it's considered good articulation. Oh, your hand is so strong. And yet to an audience person who has no idea about instrument technique or string playing technique, it sounds like excessive noise. Like, why are you making all those noises that aren't
right?
So in fact, it's that those techniques and expressions are not communicating at all. In fact, they're getting in the way. So is that good technique? I don't think so.
Well, it's interesting because I think as classical musicians, and Julia, maybe it's different for dance. I mean, we're sort of taught the purity of the form and what the traditions are and what it should be like, and it's sort of idealized, and we forget often that we are creating this for people. So they're actually the audience actually interacts with you. It's a part of the performance to have people observing and listening to you. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. I feel like we talk about this all the time. Like, if it's not, it's for the people. Like the music and the dance and the art it's not for us. It's not about us. It's about you. You know.
Actually, I mean, even further than that, it's in that act of doing for somebody that it becomes meaningful, because it's like, if you think of it as, if we think of it as food a lot, right? If we cook a meal, doesn't matter how delicious it is if no one eats it.
Right.
And it's just like being like computers too. Doesn't matter how many terabytes of storage you have and how much computing power you have if you're not online.
That's true.
It's just that simple, right? So right now, musicians are frustrated because they're not, I mean, it's hard to even convince yourself to practice when you're not going to play for anybody. Let's face it, it's just the nature of the thing. And when you train your whole life to live a certain way, also when you get used to playing for a lot of people and receiving that kind of feedback and don't have that, it's so hard. It's hard.
I think it's challenging as artists because we're always, you know, putting ourselves out there for you know, for joy, for judgment, for connection. But, you know, you are this entity that is outside of yourself. And then now we're sort of forced to be inside ourselves more. And we don't have that release of expressing ourselves and also getting that feedback, as you said, whether it's
But
good or bad, you know.
I think it's
important.
healthy too, though, that a lot of musicians have this time to think and you know, really think about why am I what am I creating, right? What even am I creating right
Right.
now? Because we play all this music and we like practice it and want it to be perfect, but then how many of us like design our music to say something really meaningful that's worth listening to?
Right.
You know, a lot of people only do it for the popularity contest.
Right. Which defeats the whole purpose. I mean, you're right, there's no meaning behind that.
There's no meaning there.
Which it's
Right.
interesting. Well, you know, because we've had this time off stage, all of us, to, I think, you know, spend more times in our heads, literally. Are there things that you guys have sort of discovered about yourselves and each other that maybe in the busyness of, you know, seasons and lives and performing, you wouldn't have the opportunity to encounter?
Well, can I go first on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm really blessed because I actually like spending time with her.
Oh.
Yeah. We were just saying this, like, how many people actually get to spend this amount of time with the person that they love? Like, normally,
Well, nowadays, I mean,
nowadays everybody.
Yeah.
But
actually, a
before
lot of
this,
people are separated right now,
Oh,
even
yeah.
now. Yeah. So
before this, he would have been gone all summer, like busy, and I would have been busy, and now we get to sit here and talk about art all day. You know, it's life isn't terrible.
well, and, you know, you know, we're very blessed. Is
true.
really how we should put it, because
Yes.
you know, there are people who, you know, are with people but aren't physically with them, and that can't be easy. You know, and there are people right now who are trying to date, and that I can't even imagine what
that.
is that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my goodness. But honestly, like, this is a time of growth and real learning, I think, for everybody. And really, I do feel a change in the world, like, in general. I think there's a lot of tension too, but that's what happens, you know, when we grow. Like, you know, growth pains, all that kind of stuff is very real. And I think right now this is really a time of drastic change. And a lot of people like are very outspoken about it. There's some also very dangerous energy. I think as artists, it's very important that we still promote peace and all of the lessons that we learned from the greats that got us here. Just because we got this far, we can't forget it. You know, we have to still remember what brought us this far, and still stay humble and compassionate. And that brings us to really the theme of our lives nowadays is really the compassion and the humility, because we're seeing every day that Venn diagram, that circle that I thought was me, that I decided, and we talk about this every day, so I sound like a broken record to Julia, but we decide who we are, and we tell ourselves these elaborate lies to perpetuate this idea of who we think we are. And then when other people don't treat us that way, we get all bent out of shape. Having said that, our idea of who we are is a complete lie and a delusion in and of itself, that we learn to do from a very young age, maybe as early as your terrible twos. That's when you can't even speak yet. And the reason why is because it's very convenient to now displace your accountability onto somebody else and replace it with just a little bit of entitlement, which is to say, basically, I am the person that I say I am.
Right.
And this is the individual that I believe myself to be, that I am. So I am not responsible for my moment-to-moment decisions.
That's an interesting
because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And if you say I'm anybody else, then I'm just going to get mad at you. You see how immature this sounds, right? It's basically saying that if I'm going to use Mr. Rogers' word, it's basically, I am not going to stop. I am going to only react to other people and not have any actual thought out responses. That's what you're actually saying by saying I'm an individual. It's giving you no room to grow. And it's saying that in every moment when I can choose to be good or bad, that decision is no longer mine.
Is gone. Right.
So if you really want to be an individual, the first part is to basically throw out everything you think you know about being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we try to do every day for ourselves, and it's really hard. But
Especially for me.
and she saves me
so?
from me like every moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because like we don't want to be hypocrites, but it's so hard, so it's good to have each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to have that honesty with each other as well, and to have a partner to bounce that energy off of. I think you guys are really lucky to have that, because I think you have a deeper understanding too, because you're both artists and you have these backgrounds and temperaments and just a knowledge of yourself and of the world in a different way, I think.
Yeah, we miss our friends though.
Yeah.
We miss you
Yeah.
and Paul.
I miss you.
Yeah, and we live like literally blocks away.
I know, which is insane. We should actually socially distance. We should actually get together because we can.
Yeah.
So I guess last question for you guys. What has given you kind of answered this in your last answer, but what's given you sort of hope or sustenance or joy in all these months of upheaval and challenge and
Love.
Love, absolutely. And it's really nice to see like you're doing this, and like all of her friends, like to see all the wonderful things they're doing. Oh my gosh, like I did like maybe not a smart thing, and I went on Facebook and I updated my status and I said, guys, can we just please be less rude to each other, and can we just be a little nicer? And people took that as like, I mean, do I look like a racist? Like, come on, I've been fighting racism all my life, and they came at me like I was the racist. But honestly, like that started a whole new conversation, and that led to me chatting with Stanford and Joe. And gosh, if you look at the work those boys are doing, it's like, I've been trying to do a similar thing, but I had been missing a few pieces. But chatting with them and seeing the work they're doing, it's really fantastic.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
And we should chat more about doing stuff here, because we can, especially now. The people who want to do this kind of work are right in front of our faces waving a red like flag.
Right.
So we can't ignore them, and we're here, and we can't say we're too busy, because we're not.
Right. Exactly.
So let's all do it. Like, I just want to do a couple things. I want to give kids tools. Like, I'm not talking about just teaching how to play violin or guitar. I'm talking about the kind of stuff that Joe's doing, giving them healthy ways to express themselves, so that they don't have to hit a wall. They don't have to go and steal. They don't, so they know that they can ask for help if they need, and that they know that their pleas for help will be heard, and that there are people out there who do love other humans, not because they have something to gain, but simply because it's the right thing to do. And when you set examples like that, those kids will treat other kids like that. And because those leader kids, there's only a few of them. Most are followers, and there's a few herders, right?
Yeah.
And those are the kids that, if left unchecked, they're going to become the thugs, and they're going to take a whole bunch of kids with them. If you give them the right tools, they're also going to influence the same kids in a positive way. So we can do this now. We have no excuses not to, because we have all this time, and a bunch of artists are out of work.
Right. Yeah.
So what are we waiting for?
I think it really goes to this thought of, and I'm going to sort of bring it full circle, like our responsibility as artists are not to ourselves. It's to the people that we create this art form for, right? It's for everyone else besides ourselves. And I think this time.
And the way we got here too, like we could be anyone. The reason why we're sitting here talking about this and not anybody else has nothing to do with us. All I've done is make mistakes and screw stuff up. I'm still here because of all the friends and all the teachers who believed in me in spite of my mistakes. So really, all we have to be is grateful and humble and compassionate, and see what can I learn and what can I do right now, and not be lazy.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but it's good to have friends.
Yes.
It's important to have friends. I mean, friends are our families and our communities, and our connections to each other are really the most significant things that we have. It's it's what makes life what it is that we're all connected to each other, which is a
I
lovely
agree
thought.
with that. That's it. That's the truth. Gotta believe in life.
And I think that's a good place to leave it. You guys, I love how you look at each other, and it's been like, I feel refreshed talking to both of you, because it's so nice to see that kind of connection, love. It's really quite beautiful. So
Hey, thanks for having us on your
Thank
show.
you.
yeah, no, thanks for sharing your thoughts and each other, and being so sweet. It really is lovely to see people who are genuinely kind to each other. Not something we always see in the world. So wonderful to see you guys. Thanks for joining me, and thanks everyone else for viewing, and this will be on IGTV and also on YouTube next week.
Great.
Thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Hugs to
you.
Paul.
Bye.
Bye.